Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hello, Rahel. Welcome.
Nice to see everyone. Yeah, I think we are going to start with a short EXA Bootcamp introduction, as usual in our open lectures. So yeah, and then Berenice and Crimson will start in around 5 minutes. So let me start with that. And yeah, please let us know where you're all zooming in from. I really like that idea in the beginning that someone said we need this Zoom plugin to show all the locations on a map. That would be really cool. Yeah, so. Can you see my screen correctly?
Yes.
Yes, looking nice.
Okay, yeah, so welcome to our XR Pro event series. I hope you've all seen the link on Eventbrite. Feel free to also sign up to our future events. We may have, if you all like it, we all may have more events about ChatGPT, inviting different developers to talk about their experiences. So feel free to also register to our newsletters and follow us on Eventbrite. And also, if you want, we are usually uploading some of the open lectures to YouTube. So yeah, please also follow us on our EXA Bootcamp YouTube channel if you find this interesting. So who are we actually? Well, as the name EXA Bootcamp is already telling, we are teaching virtual reality and augmented reality, and also now we have a heavy point on mixed reality skills as well. And our alumni, especially from our foundations and prototyping bootcamp, are now working at very, very cool companies in very, very exciting positions. So if you're interested in starting or yeah, improving your current career in XR, we invite you to look at our courses and yeah, and let us know. We actually have an info session about our courses, about our bootcamp and our master classes right after this open lecture. So feel free to also join that one. And yeah, we're also sharing the link to the info session in the chat. And yeah, I just want to highlight that for the beginner level bootcamp, we have students from very, very different backgrounds actually joining us and also having very impressive careers afterwards. So for example, there is Sadiq. He was working at a university in Italy before. And after our bootcamp, he got an offer from Apple to work as spatial engineer there, which he rejected actually because he prefers to work in robotics. But yeah, it was a great success story. And then Michael, who was a software developer and then now is working at Meta as a XR prototyper. And we have Emma, and she's actually, I think, the most impressive one because she didn't have any coding knowledge before signing up to our bootcamp. And yeah, I mean, some of you may have played the virtual reality game Moss, and now she's working at the studio, which is yeah, which has done this game, and as a technical artist. Yeah, so of course, you can come to our info session right after this, but just to give you a small overview over the bootcamp. So it's a 4-month program. There's a entrance level test, a C# test, which you would have to pass in the beginning. But as I just mentioned, you can come even though you don't have any coding knowledge. And to pass the eligibility test, you basically can sign up to our free C# course, which takes like around 40 hours, I would say, if you really don't have any coding knowledge before, and then you will pass the C# test. And then you're all set to start with our XR Foundations course, which is the first 2 months, where you basically learn C# and Unity. And then the actually core of our course is the XR prototyping course, which is the last 2 months of the program, where you just prototype. So every week you're prototyping one project, and that can either be with an industry partner of ours who's giving you the briefs, or you can of course choose to yeah, to just prototype your own ideas, your own XR ideas. And then you're also like for the last 4 weeks of the program, you're getting together in groups and prototyping one, as we call it, MVP, one minimum viable store-ready VR project together with your fellow students. And yeah, so if you in this phase, if you are looking to basically work with one of our industry partners, we have, for example, one of the industry partners is Pearson, and they are also always looking at our students to hire them if they are basically working on one of the prototype ideas that Pearson is giving to the students in the last phase of the program. So you directly have these direct connections with our industry partners, and also learn how to work with real briefs, with real project partners, with real project managers, basically evaluating based on the quality of your prototypes you are delivering. And yeah, I mean, feel free to check our Trustpilot page and read our reviews. We also have some of them in our curriculum, which you can download. And yeah, we're very happy that our students are very happy with our programs, and that we can enable so many great careers in the XR industry. And yeah, what's actually our philosophy behind? So of course you can learn XR development just by signing up to Udemy courses. You can learn it by just watching YouTube videos. Of course you can do that. But in terms of accountability, in terms of learning efficiency, it's best to always learn together with others, to learn in small groups who hold you accountable to your progress. So you don't get distracted, and you are basically always working with assignments and with homeworks, and together with others. It's just much more easier to learn efficiently, and it's also much more fun. So yeah, so there is this content hierarchy of bullshit with which Wes Kao has created. She's a very famous learning development manager, and it's very true, as I think. So yeah, that's why we basically decide that all our courses we are offering are cohort-based. So you're always in small groups and can learn together, and of course together with our trainers and mentors. And yeah, I mean, have you already shared the link to our free C# course? I'm just like, yeah, just to give you a little, first experience before signing up for a huge program like a bootcamp. It's always best to try yourself and to just like, also learn, or also see if it's actually fun for you to program. And for us, programming is actually a heavy focus in our program, because that's we are very heavy on skill to job programs, and the programming part, the coding part, is mostly the part which gets you the job, because that's the most in-demand skill. Even for designers, even for project managers, if you have some coding knowledge, that always helps you. And yeah, we are very, very proud on our XR developers, XR creators community. I would also like to invite you to join our Discord server, where you can basically ask any question you have about XR development, about the C# course if you're joining, and yeah, just network and connect with other people all around the world. And yeah, so there's also many companies which are regularly, especially sending developers to our advanced level courses. So if you're, that's also like one of the advantages we can offer to you, that all these people which are coming to our advanced level courses are looking to hire as well. So they are also looking at our more junior graduates. And yeah, our what's also very distinguishing for XR Bootcamp is that all our trainers and mentors, they have side jobs. So no one is full-time as a trainer at XR Bootcamp. Everyone is basically running their own successful XR studio, or they are working at Ubisoft or at different XR industry companies. So they always stay up to date with what is actually currently required in the industry and what's actually currently in demand skills. So for us, it's very important that all our trainers are actually having their real work on the side, so that no one is actually teaching something which was current 2 years ago. And as you all know, the industry is changing very, very quickly. Ferhan, do you want to add something about our students' projects?
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Rahel. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's quite exciting to see hundreds of people again in another open lecture. We are organizing quite frequently now. We thought the commitment towards these open lecture attendance may drop, but it actually increase, and it becomes like a avalanche right now. So we are really happy to see every one of you. As Rahel mentioned, actually, we are also in an interesting session today, because the graduates and students of our programs and mentors of our programs are actually directly contributing to the guidelines, to the open lectures. Berenice, Crimson is they are actually one of them. We will introduce them as well. Actually, this project has been created by Berenice and her team. It was called NoFob MR, I guess, right, Berenice?
Yes,
so,
yes, correct.
I remember Ambika and the others who
Ambika and Asta.
Fatma and Asta, yeah, they created this with 3 people in only 2 weeks. So they were not knowing pass-through before. They learned all the SDK presence platform by themselves. So at the end of the day, as Rahel mentioned, the goal is you may have lots of SDKs launching right after even graduating from our programs, but we really want you to be self-capable of learning the new SDKs by yourself and hack your way through all these new challenges, new SDKs, new platforms. So this is actually a great example that actually get the recognition even from Meta team on social media. So we are really proud of these projects. It's being created in such a short period of time. And with like a multiple people. So happy to also talk further on the info session as well. As Ryan mentioned, we are always in like you can always talk with our team, our graduate students on the XR creators and understand how does it look like to be in this kind of a cohort-based commitment programs, like 4 months programs. And today I would like to actually give the stage to Berenice and Crimson. And everyone is talking about ChatGPT after we posted the guideline created by Berenice and the team. We get a lot of interest and demand, and we decided, okay, I think it deserves one open lecture so we can, like in a comfortable way, we can discuss and even get questions that you may have. So today is the day. Prepare your questions. One small reminder, please ask your questions in the Q&A tab. Don't post on the chat window because it is very difficult to find for us. So please start posting your questions on Q&A. So as I mentioned, Berenice and Crimson was also through our bootcamps, and they are also working very hard on multiple projects on multiple platforms. They have been on the industry on the app development side for a long while, and now they already focus on building amazing XR apps. So I would like to welcome both of them. I think Berenice, you will start with the art side first, and then we will leave the coding side to Crimson right after. So stage is yours, team, and feel free to share your screen.
Yeah, just a second. Thank you very much, Ferhan. I will share my screen. You tell me you see something, I guess.
Yeah, if you make it via show, so we can make it full screen.
My first slide here. Okay, thank you, Ferhan. Hi, everyone. I'm Berenice Terwey from Germany, a self-employed Unity and XR developer and prototyper with several years of experience in AR. I'm really thrilled to be here, and thank you very much for joining us.
Hey everyone, I am Crimson Wheeler. I am the co-founder of IC Studio. I have over a decade of software experience, or software development experience, and I am an XR developer and game designer. So in this presentation, you will hear Berenice talk about ChatGPT and using it to generate art prompts.
Oh, sorry. Here we are.
Maybe with direction arrows, it will be easier to navigate.
Yeah, so you'll hear Berenice use ChatGPT to generate prompts for Midjourney, Refusion, and a couple of other AI programs. and then you will see a live demo. And I will be talking about best practices for using ChatGPT to increase your efficiency with software development.
Yes, and afterwards we will also doing a Q&A. Okay, thank you so much, Crimson. Sorry for the confusion. I got trouble with my arrows here. Okay, first I'll be giving an overview why and how ChatGPT can assist in writing prompts. Next, I'll compare the output of generative AI with and without ChatGPT. I will walk you through my technique for using ChatGPT and Midjourney, including a short live demo. And finally, I will share a few resources and links I found so far. So without further ado, let's dive in. I get here some trouble with my arrows. It's so, okay, this is the right slide. As we all know, imagery and multimedia content play a crucial role in the development of any project, from ideation and prototyping through to release and promotion. And ChatGPT can assist in generating and refining art prompts, which then can be utilized by another generative AI. These processes are commonly referred to as text-to-image, text-to-vector, or text-to-sound, text to 3D, and so on. During the ideation phase and at project start, mood boards are always an essential medium to communicate with 3D artists, UI and sound designers, and everyone else involved. Also, during prototyping and development phase, we need imagery and assets in any case. With text prompts, we can generate spherical images, for example, for AR portals, which are very popular. Also, equirectangular images and panoramic textures, seamless patterns, and also UI design, as well as music and soundtracks. Additionally, ChatGPT can generate basic code for shaders in Unity. And with the help of announced generative AI, like the one from Masterpiece AI and the one by Google, we'll be able to even generate 3D models and motion from text prompts. Finally, teams responsible for app and product release, marketing and promotion need imagery too. So let's examine two images, one generated without and one with the help of ChatGPT. On top, you see on this slide my initial prompt, which consists just of a few keywords. And for your reference, the pictures on this slide just showcase the style of 17th century flame paintings. In this case, they are by Rembrandt and Bruegel, but I haven't input them into generative AI at all. It's just to show you the style. So on the next slide, you see on the left, you can see my original prompt, then fed into dall-e by OpenAI, and the resulting image. You can see that there's no background in the image. The turf wagon appears unnatural, and the ground lacks detail, in my opinion. And with the help of ChatGPT, the image on the right shows an improvement because ChatGPT provided a more detailed and descriptive image caption, but based on my input. And it added attributes, adjectives, emotional context, and style description. Finally, feeding that result from ChatGPT into dall-e resulted in an even more refined image because the background now and the wagon appear complete. The lighting is improved and the color palette matches the style of the 17th century flame paintings, which you have seen before. Let's take a look at another example, utilizing a different prompt for Midjourney. In this case, as you can see on the left, my original prompt resulted in a bright and colorful design, reminiscent of a computer game. However, after feeding my prompt into ChatGPT and using its reply, the result on the right presents a more complex scene with improved lighting and an inviting atmosphere. Now, you probably wonder how to achieve this. First, let me explain the general structure of an art prompt. We usually start by the desired content type, in this case, an image, but you can also indicate a photo, painting, or collage, or whatsoever, then followed by a description or image caption. We also provide information about the desired style and eventually about the format and resolution, but this depends on the generative AI. Now, to create rich art prompts, we can use, for example, the following techniques in combination. First, we have to tell ChatGPT which role it has. In my case, I always feed in act as a prompt engineer. Then it shall ask questions before replying to better understand the task. And the next point is very important. I teach ChatGPT the guidelines from the documentation of the other generative AI. For example, you can grab from Midjourney on the website the prompting notes section, where you may find hints and advices how to craft a prompt. I copy that and paste it to ChatGPT so that ChatGPT learns this kind of stuff. Then seed a few words and phrases that best describe the desired artwork, and provide historical references or art movements that can influence the overall style and aesthetic of the artwork. Also provide some emotional context for the artwork, such as mood or tone, and use extracts and parts of the project brief and storyboard elements. For example, a plot, characters, and settings. And you can tell ChatGPT it shall provide specific attributes such as color, shape, texture, and composition. Optionally, you can let ChatGPT condense its own output in case it's too long. And in the other generative AI, for example, Midjourney, if possible, provide a sample image or a set of images that showcase the desired aesthetic of the artwork. For example, with Midjourney, it's possible to input such reference images. In this case, an art prompt has the following structure. At the beginning, the image prompt in the form of a URL, then our text prompt, and followed by optional parameters, which are specific here at Midjourney. Okay, I think now it's time for a short live demo. Let's generate some art. I've already prepared a kind of project brief with ChatGPT. It's a language learning game in VR in a bustling city where the player interacts with NPCs and interactive hotspots. So we are going to generate prompts for the mood board, especially an artsy environment design, a seamless pattern texture, which we always need in the 3D, a soundtrack, and if time is left, a basic shader code for Unity. So I will stop the presentation mode here. And we go to OpenAI and ChatGPT. I hope it's not down. So here you can see the thread I've started from scratch. ChatGPT gave me some input. It described here the language learning game in VR. I asked for a description of the environment, the NPC, for example, and this is the last one, the last prompt, and the result I've received from ChatGPT. So what I have to do now is I have to tell ChatGPT it shall switch the role from a game designer role to prompt engineer. So I've prepared my prompt here so that I don't have to type and lose time. I say, good, stop acting as a game designer and act now as a prompt engineer until I tell you to stop this role. I hit enter. ChatGPT says it understood, and I can feed in my next prompt. I have copied, I will copy the guidelines from Midjourney, but first I will tell that this is not yet an art prompt, but the guidelines. I have to copy them here. It's a bit long. 4 paragraphs here from Midjourney. Here they are, and here we go. Okay, ChatGPT learns it. And I can generate the first art prompt for the environment. I write an art prompt about the game environment of the language learning game that you suggested earlier. The nice thing with ChatGPT is that it remembers the previous conversation. So let's hit enter and see what ChatGPT will tell. Create an illustration of a bustling city, perfect for language learning. Subject, that's nice. Bright, cheerful, daytime. Okay, it might be a bit too long for Midjourney, but we could try and just copy this prompt, this text as a prompt to Midjourney. Here's my Midjourney account. What I've already done here is I've uploaded my image prompt. This is a painting by Fernand Léger, a famous painter of the 20th century from France. I like its abstract style here and the colors, and I want our environment for the language learning game in the same style. So I will start by the typical prompt in Midjourney, imagine, and then everything I have to do is quite straightforward. I just drag this image into the prompt field. You see it will add the URL of the image. I paste the result, the reply by ChatGPT here, and then I can give some parameters that the quality will be just at half resolution. I hit enter now, and now we have to wait. It should start within 1 minute, usually. Some patience is necessary here. In case it's too long, sometimes too long text isn't the best solution in Midjourney. You can ask ChatGPT to condense the answer, which we will try later after this one. So the process has started here. It is already finished 60%. And here we go. I will zoom in. Okay, you see the style is quite similar to Fernand Léger. We have bright colors. It's a city with skyscrapers. It's like ChatGPT has suggested as game designer. We can open also in a browser, but I won't do it. You can open it in the browser and then save the 4 images here. Okay, we can try with a ChatGPT and tell it shall condense this long description. Condense your last reply a bit. I will copy this here. Head over to Discord, start the image prompt. I need the image prompt too. I will just copy this URL and put it in front of the text prompt. And I will ask, add some parameters here. Okay, here we go. Maybe it will look a bit different. Next, I will also create an image for the principal NPC and show you how we can get some more diverse results. You see here 4 images, square images, but we can get more diversity. Okay, it looks a bit different, but I like both. It's difficult to say which one I would prefer. Okay, let's go to ChatGPT again and put in a different prompt. I now want a description for the NPC character. Okay, I don't want an illustration. I will later substitute it by painting or image, which is a bit more general. Don't forget to praise ChatGPT by hitting here the thumbs up button or even giving some comments and feedback, because ChatGPT will learn from this kind of feedback with reinforcement learning, and this will help improving ChatGPT. Discord. No. First the prompt, the command imagine, then our create a painting. I will create an image, and we need the image prompt just by copy paste the URL, and I will add and append once more the quality. I don't need a full quality, and we can also append another parameter, for example, chaos, and I set it to 30. It must be a value between 30 and 100. So let's see what the result will look like. 30 is not a very high value, but the higher the value, the more diversity you will get. Well, in the meantime, we can let ChatGPT condense this output, condense. Okay, this is the result. Yeah, yes, it's correct. I wanted a female NPC principal character in the style of Fernand Léger. This worked. I can also, yeah, I want to show you what will happen if we give an input value for the parameter of 90, for example, so that we get more diverse results. I will copy it again. Oh, I forgot image prompt. Oh, sorry. Imagine. I'm glad that it's working and that the server isn't down right now, so that we can see the result in real time. Chaos means that the initial noise pattern from which the generation of an image starts is randomly very diverse and different. So the starting noise image won't be the same, and therefore the resulting and generated images are very different here too. I think it's clear. You see that we have different faces, different characters. The result are very different. So this you can control it by this parameter. Good. Now let's let me show you that we can also generate seamless patterns, which we always need in the 3D world in Unity for our XR projects. So we will write and generate another kind of text prompt. Go back to ChatGPT. I say it's nice here. And we feed in for texture generation this prompt to ChatGPT, write a prompt for an image, which will be a seamless pattern later. I won't feed it into Midjourney. You can do it because Midjourney has also a parameter which is called tile to generate seamless patterns. But in some cases, I got better results in another generative AI, which is called patterned AI. Here, this is this one here. I will hop into here. Okay, I check the result here. Monochromatic. Okay, sounds good. Here you can also feed in a negative prompt. You could, for example, say we don't want humans, no humans, and nothing organic. For example, because I only want some abstract letters, and I set it here to 1. And let's generate a seamless pattern. Okay, I can download it here, for example. It seems to be seamless. And then I go to a very useful tool, which is called Seamless Texture Checker. I just drop in it here and you can check if it's a seamless pattern, if you see any seams here, but it's working here. And I can adjust the size to check if I like it here. Okay, sometimes shorter prompts work better, so we can do another check. Sometimes it's too much text. If it's shorter, it's in some generative AIs, it's easier. And some generative AIs also have a limit, a character limit, so you can't feed in too much text. It doesn't give us any letters. No letters here. Collage of maybe we put letters and characters. Oh, okay. Characters are human. I haven't feed in that I don't want any humans. So alpha numeric letters. Yeah, this looks better. Okay, you could also ask ChatGPT in this case, instead of tweaking the prompt on your own, just ask ChatGPT to write a variation, another version. I tried that, but I think you can do it on your own. Let's go to another kind of generation. Let's try music and soundtrack generation in Refusion. In this case, I would first have to tell ChatGPT that it shall act now as a sound engineer and describe the kind of soundtrack style which would fit our language learning game. I tell act as a sound engineer and composer. It suggests a bustling city atmosphere, while also allowing the player to focus on learning. Some jazz and light classical music, sounds good. Should be warm and inviting. Okay, it's a bit too long, this answer. Condense your last reply. Okay, this could fit within the character limit in Refusion. Communication with NPC character, it's already too long. What could we creating a calming character? Okay, let's hit play. I hope you can hear the sound.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Calming, okay, it's not my taste, I have to say. I'm rather for classical music, but we can stop it here right now. I think you get the idea. We could also try generating some basic code for shaders, but I think I will head over to my slide here and show you a demo video so that we can speed up a bit. Okay, I fed in a prompt in ChatGPT that it shall generate a basic code for a shader. And in Unity, it's a bit special. We have to use, while programming a shader, HLSL or CG in Unity. And you can see here in ChatGPT, I wrote a prompt. And immediately it starts generating the code in the correct structure Unity wants to see in a shader script. The shader should be an animated one, a black-white monochromatic, and will have a ray marching feature. This means that some lines will move over the material. I create here a new shader script and name it the same name, give it the same name as ChatGPT did. I apply it to a material. It gave me an error here. And in ChatGPT, I can tell that I found an error, and I will also copy and paste the error message as well as the line of code which has thrown the error, and ChatGPT will fix it. Yes, I told ChatGPT it shall fix it, and it gave me the new version of the script. I copy and paste it over in Unity, create a new material, apply the shader, and then the material to my test cube. And you see it's animating and way marching. The lines are traversing over the model, over the surface. Okay, that's it. I have here just another slide with two other examples of shaders. Here on the left side are my prompts. Yes, here are the prompts, first and the second one. And you can see on the right in my GIF that it has worked. I said I want yellow, blue, and red and black rectangles, which are animated so that they move in a linear direction from 0 to 1, which is working here. And this is a simple, basic fractal shader, a shader with a fractal pattern. So that's it from my side. I hope I can, I want to hand over and Crimson will continue our presentation.
Thank you.
I have to stop my Crimson. Do I have to stop my screen share?
I can take over.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Berenice. Just one small reminder, again, feel free to post your questions on the Q&A tab. And yes, we will share the recording for those who signed up. So it will come to your email. But what we are planning is also to share these prompts that has been used here and links, resources, everything in one place. So feel free to sign up for the event. I hope that you already sign up, so you will receive not only the recording, but the prompts, so you can also try by yourself and see the difference. And the same thing for Crimson's presentation as well. Okay, great. Crimson, stage is yours.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, since I started using ChatGPT back when it was released, my workflow has changed dramatically. One of the biggest changes was the efficiency of my general programming, doing things that were simple but used to take like time. For example, like commenting out my code, like ChatGPT can really do that effectively, and I just have to simply review it afterward instead of taking the time to do that. So this has enabled me to do rapid prototyping very effectively, so I can get a visible representation of an idea in front of people's eyes much quicker than I would have been able to previously. So in the following slides, we'll be walking through the progression of using ChatGPT effectively for software development. Yeah, so one of the most obvious use cases for programming with ChatGPT is directly asking it to write scripts and code for you. So what I've done here is asked ChatGPT to create a script that will create cubes randomly and then change the colors of those cubes based off of key presses. I also ask it eventually to ensure the cubes that don't touch each other when they spawn. Yeah, so my first prompt, or this was my starter prompt for creating the cube. So this was a completely fresh instance of ChatGPT with no knowledge of what I'm doing beforehand. And my starter prompt was asking Chat to write a Unity script that spawns a new cube when I press spacebar and then changes the color of all existing cubes when I press enter. And this worked very effectively at the beginning, but as you can see, with this image down here, it actually, you can only see one cube at a time, and that's because I didn't specify the position of how the position should be changed when it spawns the cube. So all of the cubes are overlapping onto each other. So one of the most powerful parts of ChatGPT is the ability to reprompt and modify code that you've used in the same thread. So that's what I've done here. I told it what was happening so that each cube spawns in the same location, and then I asked it to modify the previous script so that each cube would spawn randomly within a sphere with a radius of 1. And this was able to modify that code. It added one line and then modified another line to use the random position that it was able to generate. This then was able to give me somewhat of my desired outcome, but the cubes still have a chance of randomly overlapping with each other. So I then reprompted ChatGPT again, telling it to rewrite the script so that when it spawns the cube, it does not let them touch each other. And if it's impossible to spawn a cube within the radius of 1, it just wouldn't spawn a cube at all. And this gave me the behavior that I wanted, except for a small tidbit that with this, I did not realize would happen until it did. So basically, I wanted it to continually try and place a cube unless it was absolutely impossible to place a new one. But this only loops through the existing cubes once. So I would actually need to refine this code further if I wanted it to give me the exact outcome I needed. This was an example of progressively refining the code, and is a way that ChatGPT is incredibly powerful and can enable you to do things that you wouldn't have previously been able to do in the time that you have. So another use case of ChatGPT is to refactor existing code. This allows you to quickly clean up code that was originally cluttered or messy. You can comment the code, you can break it into its own code blocks so it's easier to read. There's really like endless possibilities. You can even provide design patterns for the code. As long as you tell ChatGPT what it needs to do with the code, then it can pretty much do that most of the time, as long as your code is simple enough. So in this example, I am still in the same thread with the code that it generated previously, so it has knowledge of the previous code. And I asked it to take the previous script and extract all code blocks of their own functions. And as you can see here, it created the spawn new cube function and then the change cube colors, and it was able to extract those out of the update function inside of Unity and place them into their own readable functions that I can modify independently. I would like to point out that you don't need to use an existing instance of ChatGPT to do this with the previous knowledge. I could have pasted the script that I had into ChatGPT and asked it to do the same thing. And as long as it has enough context, it can do that for you. And this is very similar to commenting code as well. You can pass it in a script, and this one, I just told it to modify the spawn new cube function and comment it, and it was able to add the comments explaining what was happening. So it generates a random position within a sphere. It checks if the new cube position would be close enough to the other cubes, and if it isn't close enough, then it would be able to spawn a new cube. Another incredibly powerful feature that ChatGPT has when it comes to programming is being able to debug code, even if it's code that it has never seen before. You just have to be able to provide it with enough context, and then it's able to look at your code and change it accordingly. So because I wanted to stick with the code that we were familiar with, I took the spawn new cube function and I broke it purposefully. I removed the cube.transform. I changed the condition for the distance check, and then I removed the break out of the for each loop. And this function is incredibly broken and does not work at all for the use case that I had. So I created a new instance of ChatGPT, basically simulating as if I had written this function myself and I wasn't able to get it to work properly. So I gave it the function, I told it the context of the function, and then it was able to generate the original function that was working properly. Not only was it able to generate that function, it actually told me what was wrong with my code, which can be used to learn very effectively if you're struggling or failing to understand what your code is actually doing. ChatGPT can often explain that to you. I would like to point out that it only explained 2 of the 3 bugs that I added into this code, which is an example of how ChatGPT, while it is very powerful, isn't always 100% reliable with giving you all of the details and information that you need. This script does work, but if I didn't know what was causing or if I didn't know to look for that break in the for each loop, I may have not seen that it was there. This leads into a perfect point. ChatGPT can sometimes be wrong. It is very good at acting confident, but is always not competent with the answers that it provides. So it's important not to blindly use the responses from ChatGPT without making sure that they're functional. You do not want to put ChatGPT responses into a production environment until you have thoroughly tested that it's working for you. Always make sure that you're cross-referencing everything you do with ChatGPT with your own knowledge, and if that isn't enough, check resources online. There are steps you can take that reduce the chances that ChatGPT will generate false information, and one of them is learning the best way to leverage the AI. So basically, again, ChatGPT is very good at handling simple algorithmic problems, but it breaks down with complex systems, especially when those complex systems have many parts working together. So asking ChatGPT to generate those complex systems will almost always fail. It is often better to instead ask it to generate smaller chunks of code, and then you can personally go and place them in the spots that they should be within the script. Let's take the code we generated earlier, for example. That script had two basic actions. It was to spawn a cube and then to change the color of the cube randomly. Because that was a simple enough problem, ChatGPT was able to do that. But to ensure that everything was functioning properly, it oftentimes you can save time by asking it to generate those functions independently of each other, and then you would go place them in the script. In short, the less you generate at once, the easier it is to recognize when ChatGPT may have made a mistake, and then you can act accordingly without having to sift through all of this other code that may also have mistakes within it. So yes, split your code into smaller chunks. Also, there's a basic structure to generating code prompts with ChatGPT. Basically, you ask ChatGPT what it should be doing. So in this example, we are writing a script, but you can also do like write a function or write a single line of code, or you can even ask ChatGPT to write multiple scripts, though I don't recommend it. That is an option. Then you specify what those scripts are going to be used for or in. In this case, for Unity, you can always or usually say Unity, and it will generate C# for you because that's what Unity uses. But in other systems or APIs, like asking it to give you a certain programming language is almost always necessary. Then you give it the purpose of what you're asking it to do. So this prompt that I am giving is to write a script in Unity that is used to track all objects in the scene. So the basic functionality will be to track objects, but that won't be that won't be enough. That won't have enough detail in order to get the functionality I want. So I tell it to use the singleton pattern for the script and then have functions that allow each object to register itself as a tracked object. Those are more details that you can provide after the fact. You can give it in the same prompts, but it's often sometimes helpful to let ChatGPT generate its generic responses at first and then be picky about the parts you ask it to change. So ChatGPT can be used for many things, and learning is definitely one of them. So a couple months ago, I had no experience with 8th Wall, WebXR, or A-Frame, and I was basically able to teach myself the syntax in the way that 8th Wall was able to function solely by using ChatGPT. Now, it takes an exploratory mindset because, again, ChatGPT is not always correct. But it doesn't always provide you with information that is equivalent to documentation. So using documentation plus ChatGPT is often the most effective way to learn new skills that you're entirely unfamiliar with. So the way that I did this with 8th Wall was I was asking it to generate A-frame components, and then I would not only was I able to learn the syntax of those A-frame components by looking at what ChatGPT generated, it also showed me different examples of functionality that A-frame was able to provide that sometimes the documentation didn't make apparent. So it exposed me to different ideas that I could use. And this doesn't just apply to 8th Wall, it can also apply to Unity. I've done this with Python and creating Discord bots. And it can be a really powerful way to learn new skills. There are also external tools that use the same AI as ChatGPT. For example, I was able to use ChatGPT to help me generate a Discord bot that interfaced with ChatGPT. So you could actually go in a Discord server and use response commands similar to what Midjourney has, and it would respond to you with GPT-3 responses. And then another example of these external tools is actually a tool created by my friend Stephen Hodgson. He created a Unity plugin that interfaces with the RESTful API for OpenAI to generate dall-e and GPT-3 responses. And that plugin for Unity supports all of the currently published endpoints and even has built-in models for fine-tuning to train your own custom AI models directly in your Unity editor. And this is also what's going to be super cool about the future of ChatGPT is all of these tools that use this AI, but you don't necessarily have to go to the website anymore. It's going to change development as we know it. So as with everything, ChatGPT is an incredible tool and can be used to do some awesome work, but it's also important to have some fun with it. So also having fun with ChatGPT will also allow you to test its limits and know exactly what you can ask it to do and what you shouldn't ask it to do. One example of this is there's a group of people that were able to get ChatGPT to simulate a Linux terminal. And while I don't have a ton of experience with Linux, that was super cool. And I wanted to try and get it to simulate a Windows PowerShell terminal. And while doing this, I was able to eventually change the prompt to get it to simulate PowerShell. And I was able to navigate through the entire Windows directory as ChatGPT thought I should see it. Basically, those files that were in the terminal didn't exist, but ChatGPT was convincing me that they did with the output that it provided. I then asked it to create a tic-tac-toe game called ttt.exe as a command line application and place it into the desktop directory. And then when I went and I used the command line prompt to run the ttt.exe, it launched a tic-tac-toe game, very similar to what you're seeing in this GIF here, except it was in a command line terminal. And the tic-tac-toe game was fully functional. I would like to also point out that, again, this was not a functional executable. ChatGPT was just responding in the way that it needed to convince me that the executable would have been functional had it been a real file on the computer. And I was also able to do this with a Flappy Bird Unity project. I asked it to generate a simple Unity project in the desktop directory. And when I navigated to it, I was able to look at all of the scripts, and those scripts would have made a cohesive and functional game that I would have been able to play had it been a real Unity project. So in conclusion, ChatGPT is an incredibly effective tool and can be used to increase the efficiency of developers pretty much no matter what they're doing. Having ChatGPT open on the side at a moment's notice can often be incredibly helpful with code generation, refactoring, commenting your code, or debugging scripts that you just have no idea why they are not working. ChatGPT can also teach you new skills. You just have to be careful with the way that you have it teach you and make sure you're cross-referencing online tools as well, or online resources. Then that leads into the fact that ChatGPT is not always reliable, though it will try and convince you that it is. And you may not have noticed, but in the tic-tac-toe game, it actually made a mistake. And that was in this previous slide right here. It tried to, or it played a spot in tic-tac-toe. It could have blocked me from winning, but it actually didn't. And this is just an example of where ChatGPT isn't always best at making decisions. Also, I had to tell it that it was its turn. It thought it was my turn after I already went. So again, also with ChatGPT, learning to prompt ChatGPT is a skill, and it takes time and it takes practice. So have fun with it, and always be willing to try new things and test it to its limits. And thank you. If you are looking to connect with either Berenice or I, here's our social medias.
Thank you everyone for this in-depth presentation. I think there are so much to explore. We are just scratching the surface right now. So I'd love to quickly go through the actually roundtable plus also the Q&A session. I actually invited Chris and Stephen, as well as Ian is also here. So I would love them to take over actually the questions, and then let's try to answer as much as possible. Our team also just asked if you would like to see more of ChatGPT sessions, because there are many different creative or coder workflows that we can tap into. So feel free to also share your preferred workflow that you would like to see much more in depth. Maybe we can create more of that. Ian, welcome. Stefan and Chris, thanks for joining. So I don't know if Ian, if you can see the Q&A, but I'd love to quickly start the questions. What we can do is, Berenice, on the art side, you can answer and take over one question, and Crimson can take over the coding related questions. I hope you can see the questions. So let's start before we have quite a bit of questions right now. We have over 20 questions, so let's try to answer as much as we can.
Oh, I see Ian. I hope he has already collected.
Okay, I cannot hear Ian now, but
yes. Hi, everyone. I do have some questions ready that we can go over on the panel. So I think a great question that has surfaced, and it's actually right here at the top, is, so with all this information showing the tools that people can use by leveraging ChatGPT, one of the questions that came up is, well, which do you think is a more important skill? Should I learn how to do 3D development or how to do XR development, or should I learn how to do prompt engineering?
I would say everything. All. You have to do all. And specialize in one field. Prompt engineering, I think, will be important. Of course, if you want to use generative AI and so on. We call it T-shaped people. So you have to know everything in every field and specialize and focus on one or two. I think that's the best direction.
Yeah, it's also important to note that in order to be effective with prompting for these specific use cases, you do have to be able to use the software that you're prompting for.
And know if ChatGPT is generating the correct results. You have to check. You can't rely 100% to it. So you have to know your stuff as well. You know some programming. You know something about 3D and image design generation. In any case.
I have seen one actually interesting post. Like we are just in the beginning, right now. Okay, we are combining different AI-based tools into each other, but in my opinion, we are also telling that in the XR prototyping skills, if you can combine your subject matter expertise, whatever it is, engineering, medical, or whatever you are good at in terms of like subject matter expertise. If you can bring that AI superpower with that, I think focusing on your very, very specific industry-based or use case-based workflow, I think, and connecting this with the AI, relevant AI tools in the most efficient way possible, I think this will be the potential, maybe a job in the future as well, that you can really be called as prompt engineer. And the next level of that I have been hearing is prompt based system engineer, which actually understand how you can transform not only one workflow but the whole company based on these AI tools. I think we are not there yet, but I'm using the opportunity, since this is a little bit like a philosophical question, I want to ask to Stephen as well. Hey Stephen, Crimson already mentioned about you, your amazing OpenAI contribution, but would you like to say hi and then maybe answer this question from your point of view?
Sure. Which question?
The one that skills, like what kind of skills that we would like to prepare ourselves so we will be ready for the next 2-3 years of this exciting transformation.
That's a very good question. Yeah. So thank you again, Crimson and Berenice, for your wonderful lecture. You guys did a great job. And thank you for the shout out for my tool as well. Yeah. So when it comes to some of the skills to learn, I mean, really, one of the things that I'm most actually kind of concerned about is how this might erode critical thinking skills, because some people will go in and take what ChatGPT gives you and they will just use that, what the answer that they give them. So that is actually one of my concerns. So I think above all else, any skill that anyone should ever really work on is problem solving and critical thinking skills. No matter what you do in your life, those two things will be the only thing that determines how successful you will be, I think, in the long run. So anyway, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Let's go through the questions very quickly, Ian. I just want to make sure that we don't have so much questions left behind. So let's have quick questions. Maybe you can combine some of them, and then let's have quick answers from our experts in the roundtable.
Yeah, we have some that we can go through. One of them, a quick one about AI animation, is a great tool to look at is Move AI. Uses machine learning to track character poses. So you could have a room full of people and point a video camera at them and it will figure out the armature of everybody and be able to like map motion to them, kind of like doing mocap, but minus the suit. It's still improving, but that's another tool that you can look at. There was another good question here, which was about competition to ChatGPT. And I think, yeah, so Stephen, I think you might have some good thoughts on, like, this isn't, ChatGPT seems very miraculous, but when you have an understanding of what it's doing and how it was built, this is not something that's out of the reach that people on this call, you could learn how to make something like this that's comparable. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I was actually mentioning this in the chat several times that, you know, ChatGPT is using OpenAI's pre-existing backend. The only difference is that they've done is they have a really finely tuned model that they're getting lots of input back, right? So when Berenice earlier, she was talking in her lecture, she was talking about, you know, reinforcing the model with a thumbs up or thumbs down. That is you giving the model feedback, and they're using that to incorporate changes and improving their model. You can do all of this same stuff with the API as it is today. So that's just an important thing to think about. Not only that, but as you do fine-trained models, like, for example, ChatGPT, they probably have a really great crafted prompt that is an assistant prompt that they have generated that then, you know, gives it the persona of an assistant, right? So I think Computer File did a really great video recently about that and how they do like a simulacra. You guys should check out that video if you haven't seen it. But I think that they go to in really good detail about how GPT, the ChatGPT specifically, will give you a persona or something that it gives you back. So depending on the kind of prompt and the kind of give ChatGPT, that can really inform the kind of results that you'll get. So at the end of the day, it's really about the prompt as well. So, that's important. And then getting that feedback and incorporating that back into your model. So if people really wanted to create a competitor using OpenAI's same backend tools, I mean, that's actually possible to do. Like what they've done is built on top of what they already have. So, and you could see what they've done with Microsoft has incorporated that into Bing now as well. And I have a feeling it's very similar what they've done in a lot of ways. So.
Thank you for the comprehensive answer. Yeah, so this stuff is definitely obtainable. We have a few other questions here, which are also along the lines of, so with generative AI, it is fed, it's been trained on a lot of this information, and some of that is copyrighted information. Any like thoughts on kind of navigating the material that's provided, either both in code or in generative art? How does that overlap with kind of the copyright laws? My intuition is it's like many things. It's almost maybe like how drone regulation went for a little while, where the technology is moving at a much faster pace than governance can keep up with it. And so I'm sure the landscape will evolve. There are some existing examples even of like GitHub's Copilot program utilizing code that was copyrighted, and so like even the big players in the game, that mistakes can be made, and this is a kind of an evolving landscape in terms of how we grapple with IP and how it gets used. Any thoughts from the panel on where that may go?
It's difficult. I think, I hope that generative AI will implement a kind of watermark so that we can identify results and material that was generated by AI. But I think when we use generative AI, we also have to be careful and shouldn't upload input which is copyrighted. I think, for example, I wouldn't have been allowed to upload that painting by Fernand Léger to Midjourney, for example. It's probably not yet, it's not yet free to use. I think that's correct.
And I have heard 2 months ago, China bans AI generated images that don't have any watermark. I think that's also maybe a little bit strict maybe approach, but that might be also eventual decision making. Steven?
Yeah. So my take on this is I don't really see it as being that much different than artists and writers that are already consuming media and internalizing it and creating something that's a derived thing off of that. Now there is some concern about whether or not it's recreating, or taking that encoded data and mixing it up and spitting it back out. And maybe there is something there to that, where you don't want somebody to ingest that data. But then at that point, like, we see this kind of copyrighted data on the internet all the time that's not behind a paywall. How do we, I think there's going to be a lot of changes to the laws and things like this. So I have a feeling that this is definitely a gray area, and it's going to be interesting to see whether or not the United States government does, what the Chinese government does is kind of crack down on it quickly. Probably not. Probably a free for all for a long time until, somebody does something that finally, gets to the point where somebody's mad or loses a lot of money. I think that there's another great video by Corridor Crew where they kind of talk about this, and I'll link that as well in the chat.
Yeah, that's a great example. So yeah, definitely make use of these tools. My general philosophy on this is the technology is a Pandora's box type situation. Nobody can put the genie back into the bottle now that this exists, and it is going to be a part of the industry even if the legislation changes. So it's definitely worth learning how to use these tools, especially because as it becomes a bigger and bigger part of our general workflow. So moving on to some of the other questions, another great one here is, can ChatGPT generate code based on specific SDKs? For example, like using the Unity Oculus SDK? Yes, absolutely yes. There's even a very specific tool that we use in XR Bootcamp called Odin Inspector. And I had questions about like, hey, how can I use this? I'm looking for this obscure tag that I don't really know what it's called, and I don't want to read the documentation because I'm lazy. And I just asked it a question. I'm like, how do I do this with Odin Inspector? And it happily gave me the answer. So even little more specific pieces of information, you can let it dive deeper and give you surface information that you might not have found. And for many things, it's often easier than like going to Google. It's a different workflow, but yeah, it can definitely help you with specifics.
Ian, there's one more follow-up question, which I know that you're interested in as well. The unit tests, can you create unit tests with ChatGPT? Is it possible? Maybe you can also explain what does unit test means for those who don't know.
So a unit test in programming it's actually another piece of code that will run code and make sure that you get the expected output. So for example, if I have a number and it's supposed to scramble it so that you can't read it, which is like in a type of encryption that we use on the internet, you might have a unit test that scrambles it, make sure that you get gibberish, and then unscrambles it and make sure that it's the same result. I have not personally utilized chat yet to write unit tests, but it seems like a great use case for it because writing unit tests requires a certain type of thinking and a very kind of specific way to author these tests. And so using these tools to get you in the right mindset or get it to generate tests that are going to be good, but just make sure that you're not relying on it. Again, like it could write a test that's incorrect or it's not testing the right thing. And a lot of it can come down to your direction of the tool, how much you can articulate to it exactly what you needed to do. Just like with regular programming, often people that are writing code know my code is not working, even though I told it to do the right thing, and you find out that it was actually human error, and it's doing the wrong thing. Steven.
To be honest, a lot of the times I use it just because like I know what it is, but it's been so long since I've like looked at that API. I tend to use ChatGPT more as like a sounding board just to make sure that I'm on the right track with some ideas. So it's just again, one of those things where you just have to like take everything with a grain of salt and reinforce the model, give it good feedback or remind it, help it, train it. That's an important thing as well.
Definitely. So another good question that surfaced in here is, has anybody used ChatGPT as kind of a conversational assistant in kind of modern games? And I wanted to highlight, there's actually a really good example. There's this game from 2016 called Event Zero, I believe, which takes place on like a spaceship. And that was back using the original, not ChatGPT, but GPT-3 model to make a conversational AI. You find yourself in a spaceship and you need to figure out how to get out. And the way that you unravel the story is by talking to this artificial intelligence that lives on the ship. And so this was now 6 years ago. I'm sure that there are people actively working on making new tools. In fact, even recently at the MIT Reality Hack, I had an incredible experience testing out one of the participants' hacker project where they had an avatar that would spawn and you would talk to it and it would send responses off to ChatGPT and talk back. And that was one of the most conversational moments I'd ever had with an artificial intelligence. And so that was like incredibly inspiring to see like a whole character in AR talking back to me and asking me like really clever questions. So yes, their stuff is on the way. Keep an eye out, watch the landscape as it's going to continue to evolve. Any thoughts there on cool projects you guys have seen where people are utilizing this technology?
Yeah, I don't mind segueing. Jose had a question about this too, about combining Unity and Stable Diffusion for like real-time environment morphing and things like this. I have actually looked at implementing a Stable Diffusion like plugin for Unity, but it uses gRPC to communicate, not like a regular REST, so it's a little bit more difficult. Plus, there's a bajillion more parameters and options and stuff, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But as far as like real-time environment morphing and things like this, you remember it does take time to generate some of the responses and some of the things. So you're still going to get that, that lag time between prompt and response. So I don't think we'll be seeing any real-time tools. Not only that, but I think OpenAI, they do suggest that you actually review a lot of the suggestions or a lot of the results before you actually make these live in your apps. So that is an important thing to keep in mind. So you guys aren't reinforcing negative biases into the models and things like this. So just food for thought. I think it's great for a content development workflow, but not so much as a real-time, generative thing at the moment.
I just want to say that that's something I'm working on right now, is how to make these things real time. And exactly what you said is, how do you regulate that? And so you're not getting like questionable results. That's probably the biggest issue, I think. And then making it fit the formats that you want, so that it can be real time. So that's what I'm actively working on.
By the way, Chris is he already wrote on the chat, but he was working at AR glasses at Meta. So anything on the AR side, maybe Chris, you would like to share that maybe we cannot see now, but we will probably see in the future, that can be nice combination of generative AI and AR.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of companies will probably use AI in the future to generate a lot of AR assets. It's just figuring out the best way to do that and the fastest way to do that. And so you can generate it once and then have it exist in real time. And that process still takes time, like everyone's saying, but you generate it once and then you can use it real time over and over and over again. And the more of those assets you have, those are pretty valuable because you have prompts and things that go along with them. And you start building a catalog. Like there's a number of companies that are kind of doing this kind of thing, creating 3D models and whatnot from just prompts.
Amazing. Actually, like when we say AR, we should also take into consideration the voice SDKs, because the moment that we can actually create prompts with our own mouth, I think it might be interesting, at least maybe the simple ones, because then you can bring a model or any like an asset immediately to the virtual environment. I will go to the other info session now, but I will leave the stage to Ian for moderation. We may take maybe a few more questions. Ian, apparently there is a huge interest for the upcoming ChatGPT focus event series. So 96% of the attendees want to have one more session. So please write on the chat which kind of creative or coder workflow that you would like to see in the next ChatGPT events. So our team will definitely consider that and then organize another ChatGPT focus session with our new maybe lineup of experts. And we will also record the chats of this Zoom webinars, because I have seen that there are lots of nice links being shared. So we will be adding that to the supplementary document that we will share with you along with the recording. Okay, so Ian, the stage is yours. For those who would like to join the info session, our team will also share the link as well.
Okay, great. There's an interesting question here that just came in, which is, so ChatGPT was trained on information up to a certain point, and at that point they had to cut off the model. They weren't feeding it any more information. It was just sitting and training and getting smarter. So if there's a new API that had come out recently, for example, like a geospatial API that is not currently released, how might it be able to work with features like this? There are some examples. So like for a little while when ChatGPT first released, so it's not connected to the internet. And there are already some examples online, and maybe I can go find the repositories to share them back, where people have found a way to get it to look at current information on the internet. It might even be able to go and use the context previously of how it searched through to surface up information that is live right now. Like if you wanted to ask it about the weather that's going on, it'd be able to hunt there. So while yes, the main interface for ChatGPT is only trained on previous data in the past, I think that repository is another great example of how the developer community, the open source community will dive into these tools to enable them to go further, to do things that they might be limited by. And then also assume that there will be new models coming out in the future, trained on more recent information as we continue to improve them. I think I saw another question here for when ChatGPT 4 comes out, but I don't know when that will be.
I think Google, who is also working on a similar AI, will benefit of live data. And the data sets they have at disposal for training models will be huge, and that's a clear advantage in comparison to OpenAI, I think. But you can train ChatGPT and tell ChatGPT the new information that's after 2021, for example. I tried it once with a small script about XR interaction toolkit by Unity, this framework, and it used an old and deprecated method in the generated script, and I said to ChatGPT, that's wrong as an old method, to pick the right one, pick the correct one, and it did it. I don't know why, but that worked. However, you can always train ChatGPT and feed it with new information. But you have to keep the same thread, of course. If you switch to a different thread, ChatGPT will use all the information.
Yeah, that the new tool, Bard, I believe is the name, is promising to empower and kind of take it further. And that also seems like the next powerful step is like, well, this conversational AI is super helpful for kind of querying against the database of information that is the internet. Some of the more powerful use cases or more personal use cases, I suppose, will be when it actually understands the kind of like what is important to you. It may understand my calendar and what I need to do and give me a good summary of like what I need to do today when I wake up in the morning. It also falls under, like, again, the similar territory of some people are uncomfortable with having that much data handed over to other people. And there's also one other piece I wanted to touch on, which is like part of the benefit on this right now is that these AI tools have the power to let us approach search or approach like information in a new way, where right now a lot of like the Google Assistant features and whatnot, they all have to go out and talk to like a mainframe server in order to get information. And stuff like Stable Diffusion, which can be run offline on your own GPU, stuff like these custom models that right now you'll still be done through an API, but they have the potential that this could be run locally, and it has like the ability to kind of disrupt and like roll your own, make your own stuff with this that is very powerful. So there was also another benefit on that. And Stephen, I saw that you answered this question on the side, which was about kind of like how much do these tools cost to use, and also how would you handle like changes to the pricing possibly in the future? So even like there was a leak of like, or was it a leak or it actually came out about how much OpenAI was planning to charge for like a premium feature. I don't remember the price point on that.
What was it? The ChatGPT Pro?
Pro, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was like, this is crazy, because I mean, I guess it depends. If you want to use the API as it is, it's going to be a lot cheaper than if you're to subscribe to ChatGPT Pro. It's effectively just the web interface, right? But it's effectively the same thing. don't get me wrong, if you feel like that it's helpful for you and you don't want to go and code your own thing, you should definitely go support the product because it's a great product. Obviously, everybody has blown it up on the internet and has become the next big thing, right? So, if you feel like it's worth the value, then please go pay for the software, okay? I implore you guys. It's important that you guys pay for software, okay? And that's an important thing. Now, what's interesting is I was just answering a couple questions as well in the Q&A. Somebody had, asked, what is the, is it possible to, do internal private API documentation? And they were concerned about, possible legal issues there. Microsoft actually has its own OpenAI on Azure instance that you can host yourself. So you can literally host your own OpenAI instance in Azure where it's sandboxed and, firewalled behind a backend. But you do need to do all of the model training yourself. They do provide you the models out the box, but you probably need to go in and fine tune those to get them closer to what you want. So now that's probably going to be much more expensive, but it depends on what your use cases are and whether or not it hits the value add, right? So that's why we live in a capitalist society. The market will correct itself.
Sure.
I just want to say that we will share our slides later after this session because several people are asking this question. We will share them. So keep an eye on Discord maybe. I think our hosts will share the link then.
So we have another question that was from Aaron, which was about, so can you use ChatGPT to kind of create sockets and networking communication between two different paradigms or different environments? So to give an example, if you had Python and you needed to send outputs over to Unity in like a C# script, could you author it to do that work? Say yes, it's definitely possible. It'll provide you with the code. You can best enable yourself if you know the vocabulary and you know how to work with these programs in order to direct it to give you the output that you're looking for. Any thoughts on some interesting use case? Like any thought on use cases where you have it bridging gaps, either technical gaps or knowledge gaps using chat?
I was actually trying to do this exact thing a couple weeks ago, and this is a great point of like having knowledge of what you're working with is just as important as being able to ask questions to ChatGPT. Because for me personally, I had never done something with sockets before with that type of use case. So when it was generating these, what seemed to be really complicated responses, for me, for someone else, if they had known the vocabulary, it would have been a lot easier for it to do. It did give me a great starting place, and I went and was able to go and do my own research on how sockets would work in this type of environment. And so it gave me a starting point, but with no knowledge, it wasn't able to fully give me what I needed to implement.
I had a slightly different experience converting things to electronics, like embedded electronics, and it did a pretty darn good job with that. So converting things from like Unity code and creating animations and things that I am more familiar with generative graphics on that end, I was able to convert into Python code that would run on embedded electronics using libraries that would work in those ways. But you do still need to know, a good amount of electrical engineering, or at least coding for it, to like be able to understand it. Because it made a few mistakes, and then I was able to like correct it just through ChatGPT.
I do want to bring up one more thing that I've seen in the Q&A a little bit that keeps coming up, and it's how can we protect people from abusing these tools? And I've had to kind of link this a few times, but, part of OpenAI's, safety best practices is to use the moderation API. It's a free call. All you have to do is send your result back and it's a free API call. Okay. So use that. Also remember to keep a human in the loop whenever possible. They recommend having a human review all the outputs before it's used in a live app. Okay. I want to emphasize that for people. All right. So this is just part of the ethics behind what we're doing, guys, so that we can continue to have a nice, sandbox to play in, because there's always going to be bad apples out there that are always going to ruin it for everybody. Okay. So it's important not only to safeguard yourself if you're a developer, but also people that are going to be using your products and services that you're going to be creating with these things. Okay.
For sure. There's even, if anybody's seen the live stream, Watch Me Forever, that was a very interesting example.
It just got taken down.
And it did just get taken down because it was not being moderated, and the AI said things that are inappropriate and offensive, and the stream got taken down for it. So it's a prime example of, like, even though it can do it, you really need to have somebody there to review what's going on. Yeah. Any other questions that we're seeing in the chat that we'd like to surface and bring up? I'm reviewing now too to try to pick some out. Is there anything we could do to condense the results from ChatGPT by default? It seems like that would be the efficient way to do it. I suppose you could include that command in your original prompt to say, give me a condensed output, and it should take that into.
I do suggest not doing that firsthand. It may seem like it may save time, but if your initial prompt would have generated something that you don't like, having the extra detail before you condense it is just nice to see and provide good output.
Yes, I agree. It's better to have at first some more detailed result from ChatGPT, and then break it down and shorten it a bit.
Yeah, then you can ask it to specifically remove details that you don't like, instead of it just condensing everything in general.
Oh, there's another great question here, which is about, so can I use Midjourney or dall-e to utilize a character that we already have in our product range, and then be able to have that be part of its output by basically inserting new data that was not included into the training model?
Yes, I think so. You would prepare an image prompt, upload to Midjourney images or several images of your character or of the product, for example, and then Midjourney will use some kind of style transfer and generate new pictures of it. It's definitely possible. It's even possible to feed in not only one single image prompt, as you have seen in my live demo, but you can also feed in several images, I think up to 4 or 5, I don't know. And you can also apply weights, so that you say the first image is the most important one. It will get the weight of 0.7, for example, and the other 3 input image prompts will just have a weight of 0.1. So you can manipulate and control a bit the outcome of Midjourney. It's definitely possible, I think.
Definitely. Another great example is on the Stable Diffusion side of things. You'll have a checkpoints file or a model file that's been trained. You can use a tool which is called Stable Dream Fusion, which is for feeding in an image set of, like, I could feed in a bunch of images of my face, or I could feed in a bunch of photos of my dog. And then I could say, draw a photo of me and my dog smiling on top of a mountain, and it would know my face and it would know what my dog looks like and be able to add those into the data set. So there are definitely tools that exist to enable that workflow.
Yes, and there are also other generative AIs which are specialized on image generation, and you can train your own data set, which is specific to your project, for example.
We're drawing to the end of our questions. Are there any tools for using AI to generate 3D assets yet?
I'm waiting for, I have to say, there is, for example, a Masterpiece AI, which has announced such a feature, so that we can generate 3D models just with a text prompt, but it's not yet publicly accessible. But you can sign up for the beta version, I think. But it's not yet released. And I know that Google is also working on a similar generative AI for 3D modeling, and NVIDIA, I think, too. I think it's just a question of a couple of months or weeks, even weeks. I don't know. What's your opinion, Crimson and Ian?
Yeah, Luma AI also has a tool that they just, I think it's still in beta right now, but it does generate 3D models pretty effectively with good prompt engineering. Doing stuff in real time, if that's your goal, is definitely is quite a ways away. But getting 3D models, I think, is pretty close.
Yeah, definitely a second on Luma. That program, Imagine, is now starting to roll out to more people. If you're interested in getting access to it, I'd recommend joining their Discord and communicating with them there. And they can, I've been utilizing it. It's pretty cool to generate some characters and then bring them into Mixamo and animate them. It's pretty powerful. And then I also wanted to give a little correction because I actually realized I said the wrong thing earlier. The tool for generating a custom model is not Stable Dream Fusion. That is Google's paper for how to generate 3D models. The tool for generating custom models is called Dream Booth. There's a lot of very similar terminology between them and just like a small mix up there. But so yeah, those are the ones that are currently available for generating 3D assets using artificial intelligence, and I'm sure there will be more on the way. So we are coming up towards the hour. I think we can take 3 more questions. Can go through. So if you have any that you've been sitting on, feel free to add them into the Q&A and we'll get to them. And yeah, let's go through. I'll see if there's any. So yes, the slides will be shared after this. For anybody who missed the opening part, we'll share we'll be sure to share out the resources, both the recording of this presentation and then also the prompts and the slides for this, so that you guys can dive into this information further.
Cool. Well, I want to say thank you to Berenice and Crimson again for the wonderful lecture you guys had. We really appreciate that you guys took the time to do this. And thank you again for the XR Bootcamp team for hosting this event.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was
yeah, thank you.
And yeah, thank you to you, Crimson. It was a nice time with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for coming to check out the presentation. Glad you're all excited about these tools and want to learn more. Keep an eye out for those resources from us in the future. And if you're interested in XR Bootcamp, feel free to join our Discord server. We're always happy to talk about the current ongoings in the XR industry and how you can learn to be a part of it. So thank you everybody for coming. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you everyone for joining. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Bye all.